You know, when we talk about corruption in India, it's a story that feels familiar. But what if I told you the real reasons this fight is failing are completely hidden in plain sight? It's not just about slow courts or shady deals. We're going to peel back the layers and find out who's really to blame.
Okay, let's just start with one number, 38. That's it. That's India's score on the 2024 Corruption Perception Index, out of 100. I mean, 38, that's not just a failing grade, it's a giant red flag. It's basically telling us that after all these years of anti-corruption efforts, we've barely moved the needle.
And this is where things get really interesting, right? Because it sets up this huge puzzle. India has one of the most powerful judiciaries in the world. The Supreme Court, they've jumped into the ring to fight corruption time and time again. So why is it still such a massive, thriving problem? If the courts are so strong, why is corruption winning? That's the mystery we're diving into today. All right, first up, let's talk about the crisis itself. To really get what's going on, you have to understand the scale of this thing. We're not talking about a few small-time bribes here and there. Oh, no, it's way, way bigger than that.
See, the problem has evolved. It's become what experts call grand corruption. Think of it like a tangled web of sophisticated networks, woven deep into the very fabric of politics and government. And when things get this messy, this complicated, the other parts of the government just seem to freeze up. They fail to act. And that's when the courts, especially the Supreme Court, are forced to step in. Not because they want to, but because someone has to. Okay, so when things go wrong, who's the usual suspect? Who gets the blame? Well, if you listen to the public conversation, there's one name that comes up again and again: the courts.
And it's not a quiet whisper either. You have critics out there calling the judiciary the single biggest hurdle to progress. The main reason? All those delays. It's a really powerful accusation, and you hear it all the time.
And look, on the surface, the numbers seem to scream guilty. Get this, at the end of 2023, there were over 11,000 corruption cases just sitting there, waiting for trial. With a number that huge, it's easy to see why people think there's a massive bottleneck in the courts.
And it gets worse. Some of these cases handled by the top investigative agencies, mind you, have been stuck in trial courts for over 20 years. 20! So you look at all that and you think, case closed. It's the court's fault. But is it really that simple? Is that the whole story?
Okay, this is where we need to look closer. Because blaming the courts for being slow, that's treating the symptom, not the disease. The delay isn't the problem itself. It's a sign of something much, much deeper going wrong in the system.
So what's actually clogging up the system? Well, it turns out the government itself is the #1 culprit. They're the biggest litigant, filing so many cases they're basically overwhelming the courts. Then you've got tons of empty judge positions, laws that are so vague they just create more arguments, and these intentional delays in even getting permission to start a case. It's like the courts didn't cause the flood, they're just the ones drowning in it.
The key takeaway here is that this is a total system failure. You've got the executive branch, they're jamming the system with lawsuits. You've got the legislature writing these confusing laws that just beg for a court battle. And then nobody's hiring enough judges. We're talking over 30% of judicial jobs are just empty in some places. This isn't the courts blocking progress, it's everyone else failing to do their job.
Here's a perfect example: the sanction process. So to prosecute a public official, you need a green light from the executive branch. Simple enough, right? Wrong. This became a tool to protect people. Approvals were intentionally held up for months, sometimes years. It got so ridiculous that the Supreme Court had to step in and say, enough, you have 3 months, period. That's a textbook case of the courts having to fix a problem the executive created.
All right, let's move on. But here's the thing. Even with all these delays, we still haven't gotten to the real heart of the issue. Now we're at the smoking gun, the real reason this whole fight is failing. And it has very little to do with how fast cases move, and everything to do with how they end.
Let's talk about what's called the conviction crisis. Basically, it's when so few people are actually found guilty that the law becomes, well, toothless. Think about it. If you're a corrupt official and you know there's a 90% chance you'll walk free, what's stopping you? This is the fatal flaw in the system, not the delays.
And here it is. The proof. Just look at these 2 states. In Maharashtra, the conviction rate for corruption cases is a pathetic 10%. But right next door in Gujarat, it's over 40%. The laws are the same. The judges are working in the same system. What's different? This huge gap proves the problem isn't the courts. It's the investigation that happens long before a judge ever sees the case file.
So let's be really clear about this. When a court acquits someone, lets them go, it's not because the judge is soft on crime. It's a direct reflection of a bad investigation. A judge can only convict if the proof is there, beyond a reasonable doubt. If the evidence is weak or the investigation was botched, their hands are tied. They have to acquit.
And what kind of failures are we talking about? Well, it's the whole shebang. Sloppy evidence collection, terrible forensic support, not getting the technical data, and maybe worst of all, not protecting witnesses so they get scared and change their stories. These are the things that make a case fall apart, and every single one of them happens way before it gets to a courtroom. This is a failure of the investigative agencies, plain and simple, and they report to the executive branch.
So where does that leave us? We've looked at all the evidence, and the verdict is in. The problem isn't just one thing or one institution. It's a systemic breakdown. And that means the solution can't be a simple one-step fix either.
What we're looking at is a shared failure. The courts have basically become the scapegoat for problems created by other parts of the government. So to actually fix this, you need what's called a tripartite mandate. That's just a fancy way of saying all three big pillars of the state have to get their act together.
So here's the game plan, broken down into 3 steps. Step 1, the executive. You have to fix your investigations, period. Make them better so they actually lead to convictions, and stick to that 3-month deadline for sanctions. Step 2, the legislature. You need to pass some big structural reforms, like creating a national judicial service to get qualified judges into all those empty seats. And step 3, the judiciary. You're not totally off the hook. You've got to keep working on efficiency and, this is huge, improve your own internal accountability to keep the public's trust.
So when you lay it all out, the path forward is actually pretty clear. It's logical, it's doable, but it demands that every single part of this system looks in the mirror and owns up to its failures. And that's the real question, isn't it? We know what needs to be done. The question is, does the system have the courage and the political will to finally do it?